orange and blue sunset and mile high here in Broncos Country. Let's get ready to ride. Russ and the rest are gonna light up the sky. We'll break it down after the game with the guys. Hometown heroes with their own sports bar. The best coverage in Denver, don't go too far. Just turn on DNVR. We are DNVR.
Welcome in to the DNVR Broncos podcast presented by DraftKings Sportsbook. And welcome into Studio B, where the B stands for Broncos. Oh, no, it's for Bradley Chubb, because we're talking about him for like a fourth straight day. Still don't have Zach, still don't have Ryan, but we do have Jake Schwanitz coming over from DNVR Buffs, from the DNVR Draft Podcast. And I'm excited to talk with you today about this trade and about the first round pick the Broncos got.
Yeah, man, very exciting stuff. The draft pod has been revitalized. We went a bit on a little, I don't even want to say sabbatical because we were still going, but it was a much different tone without a first round pick. Yep. Now we're back in the conversation. Make sure you guys tune in tomorrow to the draft pod. We'll be talking about that much more.
Yeah, I'm excited. We're going to dig into some of it here. I'm especially excited because I have not been doing my draft diligence this season. I couldn't tell you just about anything. And it started off like the first couple weeks I was watching a bunch of college football, but I wasn't watching like Bama or Georgia or the teams that have all the draft prospects because they're all just like 25-point lines and I'm not betting on that.
Right.
And so then after that, I've just like kind of stopped watching and now I need to get into it. I actually was looking at a first round mock draft for the first time a couple days ago. I mean, right after this trade. And it was a bunch of fun.
We're back in the conversation, man. They're going to get a good football player. It's an exciting time. Maybe not right now to be a Broncos fan, but once we get into January, February, March, we're going to have some very fun conversations. I mean, we're back in action.
It's going to be a bunch of fun. We're going to be digging into that in the second segment, talking about where the Broncos should go with this draft pick, including like should they trade it, which I think should definitely be on the table.
We could talk about it.
Before that, though, there was some big news today. The Miami Dolphins did what we all expected them to do and extended Bradley Chubb. And they gave him a massive deal. It's $110 million over 5 years, a little over $63 million guaranteed. That's a huge number. So we got to get into that contract extension. Let's just start with this, though. What do you think of the Broncos' decision to trade Bradley Chubb and also just about the return that they got?
I wasn't upset with the trade. I think it was kind of expected. He was the big name floated around besides Jerry Jeudy. So just on my toes expecting something on those guys. It obviously came through on Chubb. The trade I'm really happy about. You get the first-round pick. It's something they need. I mean, we can talk in positions and what they might use on that pick. I mean, tackles in play, corners in play, I think. Running back might be in play. Dre keeps on preaching wide receiver. Yep. So plenty of options. The fact that they got Chase Edmonds back is fairly exciting, too. Just a nice receiving back, something that the Broncos haven't had for a while, too. So.
Yeah. I think I totally agree. I mean, You had a couple options here. I mean, basically it was trade Bradley Chubb, extend Bradley Chubb, or franchise tag Bradley Chubb. And if you extend Chubb, obviously we see it, those numbers are, we should dig into that part a little bit deeper in a second. If you franchise tag him, then the way that plays out is, first of all, he either holds out in the offseason and says, I want a long-term deal. And considering his injury history, it would probably be a good idea for him to do that and get something done. Or he says, fine, I'll play on it. And if he plays on it, then you're left with Bradley Chubb at the trade deadline again, trying to decide whether to make the deal or not. Tough to imagine you'd be getting more for him than you did this time around, especially because there'd be another maybe $5 million on the contract at that point. So other teams are paying more to get him. Or, I mean, you could keep him at that point if you think you're making a run at the playoffs and you're willing to say, okay, we're going to lose this guy in the offseason, or potentially extend him. That conversation comes up again, but we want him for this push. So that's why I do think, just because of how much could go wrong, whether it's an injury, whether it's him holding out in the offseason, forcing your hand, trying to make you extend him, it just makes sense to pull the trigger right now.
Yeah, I think the trade made sense just I mean, you have this massive deal with Russell Wilson, and it's obviously going to limit your ability to re-sign players and be active in free agency. So I think that's part of what we saw with this Chubb trade, and they kind of just got out in front of it.
Yep.
As you mentioned, they didn't even want to deal with the franchise tag. They didn't even want to deal with whatever situation they find themselves in with Chubb, maybe kind of holding out for that long-term deal or perhaps even demanding a trade in the offseason. So getting out ahead of that, I think, is the right move. And it just puts this franchise, I think, in a better position for next year and kind of the long term also.
Yep. Like I said, 5-year deal, $110 million. That's 22 a year, $63 million guaranteed. That's compared to Randy Gregory's deal, which is 5 years also, but only $70 million, $40 million less. It's 14 per year instead of 22, and $28 million guaranteed versus 63. I think this is an easy question, but if you were the Broncos, which deal, if you could pick one or the other, would you sign up for?
I mean, you got to do the Gregory deal, I
Easily.
think. And, I mean, that might have been the writing on the wall for this Chubb trade, actually, is them going out and getting Gregory, because you could have just extended Chubb over the offseason. They opt to go get a new pass rusher. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I could see the argument either way, but I think Gregory, you want to see him healthy, of course, but that's the deal you want.
Yeah, and we kind of saw the writing on the wall. It seemed like it'd be tough for Bradley Chubb to stick around. And I think a lot of people were upset about that because of how well he was playing. But to me, seeing how these numbers shook out, sure, I still think Bradley Chubb is probably the better player when healthy, but not by enough that you're willing to pay him that much more. Yeah. And, it's more likely that Chubb misses time than Gregory if we just look at their history.
For sure. I mean, they're both kind of injury prone.
They are.
Yeah.
I ran through some of these numbers this morning just because I was curious. So Bradley Chubb, in his time in Denver, could have played up to 73 games. He played 49, which is, I want to say it was 73%. About 73% of the time he was on the field. That's about what you expect. I mean, not for a given player, but just knowing the history. Now I think of it, I think it was actually 67%. 67, yeah. Randy Gregory, to this point, he's played in 54 games. He's missed 54 games because he was suspended. Right. And he's missed 13 games because he's injured. So obviously, I mean, the availability has not been there for Randy Gregory. But, it's 45% of the games he's played in. 81% of the games he hasn't been suspended for, he's played in. So while there have been injuries that have been an issue, it's more so the suspension that has caused problems. And he was suspended for violating the marijuana policy over and over and over. Mm-hmm. That policy doesn't exist anymore. So you would think that issue is gone.
Hopefully. that's the hope. Going back to Chubb, though, I think you go back to the 2018 or 20. I can't remember which one it is at this point. But when he was drafted, and the point was
18.
18. So the point was to get Vaughn and Chubb on the field at the same time. And everyone knows it's in this podcast right now. It never happened very often, if at all. So it just, I think that might have been the plan too with Gregory and Chubb for a bit. Obviously, injuries from both, but Baron Browning's emergence has been huge too. They're going to get him back after the bye this week.
Yep.
So I mean, it's a bit of wait and see right now, but they do have players at the edge position that can get after the quarterback.
Yep, and that's the big thing. And to me, Bradley Chubb was still the best of them. Even when Baron Browning was having big games, like you look back at the sacks and it's either Bradley's clearing everybody out on like a stunt or something, or he's corralling the quarterback in the backfield and Baron's getting there. And I guess here's my next question. Let's just say Broncos defense has probably been top 3 so far this season. I don't have the exact numbers up in front of me, but I think that's about right.
Yeah, that's fair.
Actually, number 2 in yardage and number 2 in points, and those different teams in front of them in each. So I mean, you can make the case for number 1. What do you think a reasonable expectation is for the rest of the season? Like if you were just to look at yards and points from week 10 onward, what do you think is reasonable without Bradley Chubb?
Just the defense's potential?
Yep.
I mean, I still think it's just as high, if not the same, maybe a little bit lower when you lose Chubb. You still have PS2. You still have a very veteran and good back end in the secondary. Linebackers, Josie Jewell and Singleton have been making plays. You still got Draymond. You're getting Browning back. You're going to get Gregory back. And you have Evero, who has turned out to be one of the better defensive coordinators in the league. So it does hurt to lose Chubb. I mean, that's a piece that you can't really replace just in terms of what he meant to the locker room and his ability on the field. But there's still pieces in play for the Broncos, and I don't think them trading Chubb is a sign of them giving up or a sign that this defense could be in for a decline.
Yeah, I do think it's going to take a step back. And it's not just Chubb. You know, not having Ronald Darby is another piece of that.
Yeah.
You know, it might be a few more weeks before you get Randy Gregory. I look at that 7th spot. I think top 7 is a reasonable expectation. If you just look the rest of the way, I mean, to this point, that would mean, 19 points per game, which is still a great mark, but they're at 16.5 right now. They're 288 yards. That gets them to 313, so another 25 yards a game. Maybe that's a little bit conservative, but I think that's more the range that you expect. Because, again, I think Bradley Chubb has probably been your second best defensive player, probably your second best player overall this season. Yeah. We'll see. But he was doing a lot of the work up front. Still the right decision to trade him, especially with that contract.
100%.
That's just a massive number.
Yep. And just getting out in front of it, like I said. I mean, the fact that you kind of avoided the franchise tag, you just kind of wipe your hands and take your first-round pick, Chase Edmonds, and you just keep moving.
Yep. Just before we wrap all this stuff up, I want a couple more of your thoughts on the trade deadline.
Okay.
Jerry Jeudy.
Yes.
Name was on the block. Apparently there were teams offering, including the Packers. I think it was Albright who reported that nobody came close, or the Packers didn't come close to meeting the Broncos' asking price. And that's rumored to be a second-round pick combined with a mid-round pick.
Okay.
Do you think that's reasonable for Jerry?
I mean, I don't know if you're asking the right guy because I love Jerry Jeudy still. That does feel a little light for me, I think. I think you could probably get 2 day 2 picks if you had some kind of, I don't know, just some other teams in the mix. It sounds like maybe it was just the Packers and the Packers only, and I guess that's probably why the Broncos didn't pull the trigger. They just didn't feel like they had to make the move and that there was an overwhelming offer on the table, which is smart. It's what you do. Evaluate those offers that come in. I'm glad they didn't trade Jerry Jeudy, though. I think that this offense needs all the help they can get right now, and taking away, I know the fans have been on him about the drops and stuff, but taking away your wide receiver 2, potentially wide receiver 1, just how he's been playing lately, is not a recipe for success while you're struggling offensively.
Yeah, and the tougher part is that he's been better the last 2 weeks. And in terms of yards, those are his 2 best games since week 1. They were his 2 best games this season in terms of receptions. He has one of his 3 touchdowns in that time. So in one way to look at would be to say he's playing his best football. I think there are some people saying potential bust up until that point just because the production hasn't really been there for a first-round draft pick. It could be kind of tempting just to sell high.
It could have been. I have a stat for you that I think is pretty interesting. This is from Ben Solak from The Ringer. He didn't cite where this stat came from, assuming it's next-gen stats or something. But he said, Broncos wide receiver Jerry Jeudy, yards per route run. Versus man, 6 yards per route run. That is first in the NFL. Against zone, 0.96 yards run per route. 73rd in the NFL. I mean, the guy gets open when it's in man coverage. And the way I see it, it's the quarterback's job in zone coverage to find guys, find the soft spots, and get the ball out in those situations. And, man, Jerry Jeudy is doing what he needs to do.
And I'd be curious what those numbers are for Greg Dulcich because it seems like he's been incredible against zone. And maybe the issue is there's been nobody who can force you to get out of zone. With Dulcich, he broke free up the sideline. That was in zone. That first game, there are 3 times he's open at the sticks. His first game, all of those I think were against zone coverage. I think maybe we have this little combination here, and that should be the tight end's job. Like it should be a tight end who's able to break zone coverages. I guess sometimes you have like the George Kittle who's just like, he can outrun a linebacker. Right. That works too. But who knows? Maybe that's a counter. And maybe that's why teams have been playing more man and why we've seen Jerry Jeudy have a couple good games since Greg's been back.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, just losing Tim Patrick was so big on this team. I mean, it changed the way defenses scheme for this offense. It changed Cortland's role. It changed Jerry Judy's role. Now you're asking Greg Dulcich to come in as a rookie and play kind of an extended role compared to what he may have been when you had all your weapons. But Dulcich, man, we loved him in the draft pod over the summer for draft prep. We all really liked him, and we were excited to get him. And I think he's kind of outperforming expectations really at this point.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it has to be. Other trade deadline thoughts? I mean, bringing in Chase Edmonds, bringing in Jacob Martin. You didn't pull the trigger on any other deals. What stands out?
Chase Edmonds, I do like this deal. As I talked about, we talked about this a ton on the draft pod too. This team hasn't had a pass catching back, like a true pass catching back in a while. The fact that they have Chase Edmonds with the issues at health at running back is pretty big, I think. He's a player that I really liked at Arizona. I expected him to do more in Miami. It just never really worked out. It seems like Raheem Mostert just kind of took advantage of that backfield or that opportunity. I'm excited to see what he has in store. I hope Hackett and Outen can really scheme up some stuff for him and get Russ in a rhythm because of Edmonds. Some quick, easy throws, some screens, just some flair stuff. I think that's one of the ways you can get this offense back on track with him.
And we saw some of that with Javonte. I mean, week 1, 11 catches. And that was a big part of what Javonte was going to do, is take those third downs and let Melvin take more of the beating between the tackles. And again, was that the right call? Who knows? But it did seem to be the way things were working out. And they finally seem to have a bit of a replacement. And it's weird now when you have Latavius Murray and Melvin Gordon and Marlon Mack and Chase Edmonds. Rank those guys in terms of touches the rest of the way.
Oh, man. I think Gordon, just judging by Hackett's words, you got to put him at number 1.
Yep.
I think they like what they've seen from Latavius, so he's got to be number 2. And then I would... Total touches, I'd probably put Chase Edmonds right behind there, just when you factor in the receptions. They got to get Mike Boone the ball more too, man.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going on with that, and it's kind of frustrating, honestly.
He should be back in the next couple weeks.
Oh, okay. I didn't know he was hurt. That's my fault.
Yeah, I think I agree. I think of those 4, you got to go Melvin, Latavius, Edmonds. And Edmonds has a chance to overtake Latavius for sure, but just based on what we've seen, I agree. Cool. Anybody else you would have traded?
Oh, man. Just thinking. I don't think so. I don't think there's really anyone else coming up on free agency thinking from that 2018 class. I mean, Court already got extended. No, I think they did a pretty decent job at the trade deadline.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I still think Reisner's one where you could have gotten something for him before you probably lose him this offseason. Who knows? Maybe they really like him. Maybe they're going to bring him back. That one stands out. If you could have gotten anything for Albert O, that would have been tempting. Kareem Jackson. If Caden Stearns was healthy, I would have said trade him for whatever you can get at this point, but he isn't, so I guess you can't fault him too much. But I agree. We're going to dig into that first-round draft pick, what the Broncos should do with it. Real quick, though. It's officially Vanilla Porter Jr. season. It's going to snow today. That's one reason. But also the Nuggets are back. And so you've got the Vanilla Porter Jr. There's another Nuggets beer. I can't remember what it's called off the top of my head. There's also the Broncos Country Hoppy Pale Ale. So many awesome beers from Breckenridge Brewery. You can get them all down at the DNVR bar. Make sure you're coming by. It's a very fun time for that. I just missed out on the party bus on Saturday, which I'm disappointed about. But, I mean, DNVR bar and Breckenridge beer, it's the perfect combination. If you want to try any of the Breckenridge beers, you can go over to breckbrew.com, go to their beer locator. It'll tell you exactly where you can pick up any beer that you want to try. It's all good stuff, and they're in more than 30 states now, so there's bound to be something near you. Like I said, make sure you're coming down to the DNVR bar. Make sure you're a member, too, because you get 15% off. You get discounts on tailgate tickets, which you should be coming to. You get discounts on all sorts of stuff. So sign up for DNVR, become one of our members, and help support what we're trying to do here. Finally, Ivaca TV. Last night was the second showing of our new Serbia documentary. It's really cool stuff, and I actually still haven't seen it. I was trying to convince RG to watch it with me that night in London, but it was like 2 a.m. when it started, and he had just finished editing it for weeks and weeks and weeks, and so he was like, I don't want to see it.
He's probably seen enough of it,
exactly.
I think.
So I was like, well, I guess I don't get to watch it either. So I still haven't seen it. I'm really excited to check it out. It is on Ivaca only right now, but that's just one more reason to sign up. Avs and Nuggets are back. You can watch them on Ivaca. You can always also watch the Rockies. It's $25 a month. It's $5 a month for a receiver. sign up at evoca.tv/DNVR. Get the Nuggets, get the Avs, get the DNVR channel, including that documentary. Ooh, and also, like this video on YouTube. Help us with the algorithm. All right. So Broncos pick up a first-round pick.
Yes,
As
sir.
of right now, it looks like it's the 20th pick. I guess, quick question. Do you think it's going to be higher or lower than 20th by the time draft comes around?
A little over-under here.
Yeah, a
huh?
little
I think I
over-under.
got to go over in terms of
I
it
think
being
it's over.
higher. I mean, the Niners now with Christian McCaffrey, that just seems like the perfect running back for
Yep.
Jimmy G and how he plays the game. They've managed to stay healthy. Kittle's kind of coming back, and he was hurt early in the year. Debo's, I think, was he dealing with an injury too? So I just love this offense. I love Kyle Shanahan. I think the way that he's going to be able to scheme with all these guys is going to really make a difference. I mean, they made the NFC Championship last
Exactly.
year, so I would expect at least a divisional round football team. San Francisco will be.
So if they make it to the divisional round, 24th to 27th pick.
Mm-hmm.
NFC Championship would be 28th to 29th. Lose the Super Bowl 30th, win the Super Bowl 31st, obviously. Or I guess not obviously. Dolphins forfeit their pick. But I would say that 25, 26 range is probably what you're looking
Yep.
at. Who's your dream option?
It's tough to say. When I look at this, I'm on the Pro Football Network mock draft simulator right here. At number 25, Clark Phillips III, the cornerback from Utah, has been a player that's really played well for them this season. He had a 3-interception game against Oregon State, I believe. Returned one for a touchdown. He's been pretty locked down. Peter Skoronski, the offensive tackle from Northwestern, is there. He's a guy we talked quite a bit about on the draft pod. This is a guy that, I mean, Rashawn Slater just came out of this program.
Yep.
They really are getting it going on the offensive line there. Who else? I mean, if you wanted to go ahead and replace an edge, there's Isaiah Foskey from Notre Dame. That's a guy that Dre really likes. There's plenty of options. It's exciting, honestly.
What position would you go with?
That's the question, I think, right? I would probably say tackle is the biggest need that stands out right now. But cornerback is definitely in play. This organization has shown that they're not really into investing heavily with these premium picks at linebacker.
Yep.
I think that's something that should be considered. I don't expect them to do it, though. I guess, gun to my head, I would say corner, though.
Interesting. See, I don't mind that. Obviously, the idea of pairing Pat Surtain with another really good cornerback is, I mean, how could it not be intriguing? A lot of it, I think, has to do with how Damari Mathis plays the rest of the season. He's had a couple of decent games. The 4 pass interferences in his first game as a starter is what really stands out. But, you know, I'm still clinging to hope that he proves enough to say he can be your number 2. Mm-hmm. That's still kind of a long shot. So drafting a corner would make some sense. In that world, you probably move on from Ronald Darby. I think that's easy to do this offseason. But I get the temptation, and, you know, I mean, Joey Porter Jr.
Yep.
He's right
Another
there.
one.
Christian Gonzalez is going to be
Christian Gonzalez
right
for
there.
sure.
Christian Gonzalez with Pat Surtain would be incredible. Just both so long, so fast.
Eli Ricks, the guy that transferred
yeah.
from LSU to Alabama.
Okay.
Haven't really kept up with him to this point yet. Emmanuel Forbes out of Mississippi State is another long Mississippi State corner that a lot of people really like too. I mean, there's a lot of options. Safety. What do you think about safety potentially too?
It's tough. So you're looking at Justin Simmons and Caden Stearns as your starters next year.
Okay.
And that's a group that you're happy with. Like, that's not one where I say there's a need. At the same time, though, if you get another good safety, I mean, you can always find a way to get him on the field. You got all those sub packages, especially playing against the Chiefs. It's easy to convince yourself to put one in for a linebacker, go dime more often. It's not at the top of my list just because you still have Stearns.
Right.
And the odds of getting a big enough upgrade over Stearns to make it worth it, I think those odds are slim. But I could be tempted.
If there was a player like Kyle Hamilton or like Jeremy Chin out there, someone that could play that overhang, that slot,
Yep.
kind of linebacker safety hybrid, that's something I don't think is going to be available around their pick. But who knows? I think that'd be an intriguing piece for the defense also.
Yeah, I will say I'm starting to kind of be out on those guys. After seeing the way they play for the most part. And Jeremy Chin's good, but they play him at safety so much that That's kind of what makes it work. Man, Isaiah Simmons,
Kyle Hamilton's popped.
he's been so disappointing. Has he? Okay, I haven't watched the last couple
He had a
weeks.
decent play. I mean, these games all blend together at this point. I can't remember when they were last on. It was Monday night last week or Thursday.
Okay.
But he had a nice play on the goal line, and I think he's done well so far, just in what I've seen.
Okay. I still think that top pick in a landslide for me would be a tackle.
Yeah.
It'd be so hard for me to invest in the defense after what we've seen. Now, who knows? Maybe they figure something out. Maybe there's a world where Netani Moody gets a chance to play and you say, oh, he's going to be really good.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure what could happen at tackle for you to be happy going into next year unless you're adding somebody in free agency. But there's a world in which the offense figures it out and you can justify going defense. And I think if you do, corner really stands out. To me, though, tackle's just so obvious because the offensive line has not been good enough at all. And I think you need turnover there. And you have Garrett Bowles on one side. Who knows what they do at Reisner at left guard? Who knows if Netani Moody pops? I think it's easy for people to give up on him because it's been a few years.
Right.
He won't be 24 until this offseason, though. Like he was very young when he came out.
And injured.
Exactly. And he had the injuries when he was in college. And a little bit in the NFL, too. Center, I think you could really justify moving on from Lloyd Cushenberry. The rookie route kind of scares me.
Yeah.
I would almost rather that be where you invest in free agency and you add a tackle. But, Miners at right guard is solidified. He's your best lineman. And that's why if you could find a right tackle who maybe could move over to left tackle, even after this season, the Broncos could move on from Bowles. And after next season, they easily could. That'd be my move.
What are your thoughts on how Glasgow played at center, and could he be the center long term?
I think he was better. I still think that they're moving on from him after this season. I'm going to look up what the contract is because I don't totally remember at this point.
Just looking at prospects for interior offensive line, though, it's not a particularly standout group at this point. Pro Football Network, sorry. Only their highest interior offensive line prospect is ranked 34 right now. Osiris Torrance from Florida. There's some Alabama guys in there, Minnesota guys in there, Georgia guys in there.
Andrew Voorhees, USC.
Yeah, there you go.
Remember him.
They've been pumping out offensive linemen too. So who knows? I think someone will emerge eventually. I just don't know if we have that first round center interior guy just yet.
Yep. And the Broncos would save $11 million moving on from Graham Glasgow next year.
Well, you might have to consider that then.
Exactly. At the very least, it's got to be a restructure. Or who knows? I mean, there's still a little bit more than half of a season to go. If he is a center the rest of the way, then maybe you see something that makes you want to keep him around. I'd still be a little bit surprised. I do think he is better than Lloyd Cushenberry.
Yeah.
It's just how much better is he, and is it worth benching Lloyd, who could figure something out and is young and could be your center for the future?
Right.
At this point, though, that center spot and both tackle spots, even when Bowles was playing, he was getting called for those penalties again. And that was the problem with the offense early on, was all the penalties. And they win week one if not for all those penalties. So, I don't know. There's work to be done, and that's why I think just adding a lineman, especially, I do like that Skoronski from Northwestern. Not that I've just seen a couple clips pop up on Twitter.
Yeah, I mean, he's been a guy that we've been talking about for 2-3 years at this point.
Yep.
He's a stud. But I think the main takeaway from this conversation is that there's so many ways to go, and so many ways that they could improve the team at the same time. If I had to bet, I bet Peyton keeps his cards close to his vest and kind of surprises us all on that Thursday night.
And I wouldn't mind trading it either. If there's a vet out there, if there's a good tackle you can get for a first-round pick, even if it comes with a price tag, I'd be willing to trade for a Pro Bowl type of tackle instead of waiting. Because that's the other thing, is that you're talking about adding rookies to a team that, in theory, is in a win-now mode.
Right.
With Russell Wilson. He'll be 34 next year. And I don't know. There's a lot of issues with the team, and so you don't want to overinvest in right now, but I don't know. If there is a good Pro Bowl tackle you can go and get and add to the mix, give up a first round pick for him, I'd be fine.
Who would that player be, though, is the question.
I'm not sure. It's tough to know who's going to be on the block this offseason.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I'd need to look at
Yep.
expiring contracts and stuff. But I think it's an option. I think trading the pick is something that should be talked about too.
Totally.
Just because you are kind of down picks this next draft. They do have the first and 24, right?
Yep.
So, I mean, you could start kind of building it up if you really feel like that you need to kind of tear it down, or if Peyton feels like he needs to tear it down in some way. And just trading for some future picks a year or two out it's not a bad strategy. I wouldn't be upset with that.
Totally. I think that's it. Unless there's any other names you want to drop.
Just the comment from J27, Paris Johnson Jr. This is a guy, he played guard at Ohio State the past couple of years, moved over to left tackle this year. I mean, he'd be honestly a dream pick for the Broncos. It seems like he's going to be a top 10, top 15 guy, though.
Yeah, that makes sense. Cool.
Yep.
I think we got it. We got to hit the questions. If you guys have any questions or comments or any of that, leave your super chats now because we're going to be hitting those after this break. So leave those there. Don't forget, give us that thumbs up. And also sign up for DraftKings. It's a really good time to be on DraftKings. Obviously, you got the World Series going. Have you watched any of the World Series, Jake?
No.
No, neither have I. I've had no interest. All these people, I've seen tweets like, oh, it's been the best World Series and so on. It's like, I don't care.
I've watched...
Really?
Sorry, Kale. I was watching Maction instead.
Exactly.
And I actually threw on an NBA game instead,
Exactly. Too. Yeah. So if some of you, though, you like baseball, go ahead, watch the World Series, bet on the World Series. I bet you could have gotten good odds on a no-hitter last night. Probably. But there's also so many NBA games. There are NHL games going on. Obviously, Maction's back. That means there's football every day now.
It's Dre's been on it. I think we're on 7 straight days of football.
Wow.
Of football month in America.
Wow, football month in America. It's the best time to be on DraftKings. And if you are a new customer, you can make any $5 NBA moneyline bet. You'll get $200 in free bets if your team wins. That's on top of all the different promotions they have. They've got the odds boost, the parlay boost. So many options. So download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use the promo code DNVR. Make any $5 bet this week. Get $200 in free bets if your team wins. Only at DraftKings Sportsbook with promo code DNVR. Minimum age and eligibility restrictions apply. See show notes for details. And also get out to Infinity Park in Glendale. Go watch the American Raptors. They've rebranded again, but they're playing good rugby. They're in their season right now, so you can go out there. If you go to AmericanRaptors.com, you'll get free tickets, which is an awesome deal. I think you can stream every one of their matches on that website as well. Make sure you're following along with Colton Strickler at DNVR Rugby, and also make sure that you're getting out to those games because it's a bunch of fun out at Infinity Park in Glendale. All right. Any super chats we got to hit, Kale? No super chats. Awesome. This will be a quick one. Oh, I left the comments page because of the malware.
I'm trying to help you out here.
Awesome. We'll go pull those up. Visit this again. Kayla, you have any questions?
It's great podcasting.
I know. The website makes it a little bit tricky to get over to these comments.
All right, I got it.
Oh, did you? Okay, cool.
Yeah. Do we start at the top or the bottom here?
Either way.
We only have 3.
That makes it easy.
Okay, this is from Mrs. Quill. I saw an analyst mention that getting a first-round pick back now could help us land Sean Payton this offseason. Would you guys be in on that move, and what is the most you guys would be willing to give up to get him? Great question.
That's tough.
It's intriguing.
Giving up a good pick for a coach is just such a tough sell for me. Like, I get that he's a good coach, but it's the X's and O's or Jimmy's and Joe's thing.
Yeah.
And I just think that you look at this offense, and while the coaching has been an issue, you also just need more talent. I don't know. I don't think I could do it. Because what? He's under contract through 2024 there?
I think so, yes.
So you'd have to wait a couple years. I just feel like if you need a coach, you can go hire a coach. And that's
Yeah.
totally wrong because more than half the time a coach you hire winds up being a bust. But It is what it is.
I mean, the Mike McDaniel, the Brian Dabols of the world, they come around every year. There's always a first-time head coach that usually kind of pops up and surprises. It's just a matter of getting lucky and picking the right one, honestly. Peyton would be an upgrade, though. It'd be interesting to have him. Obviously, an offensive mastermind, but I don't think it's worth giving up the compensation that you just received for a team that needs help at many positions.
Yeah.
It's intriguing, though.
Totally. I get I don't know. How good is Sean Payton? It's really easy to say he's just a top 3 coach. You look at how the offense was run, all those different things. But also, I mean, he did have Drew Brees.
He kind of made Teddy Bridgewater look really good there. He kind of made Jameis look good there. And he turned Taysom Hill into a legitimate weapon. I mean, he's done things and developed guys. But yeah, the compensation just makes you hesitant.
Yeah. And I don't know. I also just like the idea of having a veteran coach. Somebody who's just going to come in and whip guys into shape, you know?
They know how to call a game. They know how to
Exactly.
call timeouts. They know how to manage the 2-minute warning, all that stuff. I mean, yeah.
I don't think I could pull the trigger on a first-round pick for Sean Payton, but if George Paton were to do it, I'd be pretty fired up.
It would make it very fun.
Yep.
Obviously, you'd have to get creative in free agency if you spend your first-round pick that way. But the Saints are a team that's really in need of new picks too, especially if they that trade for Olave last year. So I don't know. I mean, it kind of sounds like 2 teams that could get a deal done. It's just a matter of biting the bullet, I suppose.
Yeah. So I think most I'd give up.
If you had a second,
if there was a
pick,
third, I'd definitely trade the third.
Yes.
For a second, I would pull the trigger for a second. Again, the big thing is he has to want to come.
Exactly.
And so it's kind of up to him first of all, and then the deal gets figured out. But I could pull the trigger for a second. If George Paton were to trade this first, I'd say it's a good deal.
It'd be interesting. You ready for the next one?
Yep.
Chicago Bronco 86 says, curious what you guys think would be an acceptable season at this point. I think 9-8 with a win over the Chiefs is enough for me to feel good about the future. I'd be tempted to take a wide receiver with the first from Chubb. ESPN released a new set of wide receiver analytics trying to take QB performance out of the equation, and it ranked Denver's wide receivers 29th as a team. Seattle's receivers were first. Sutton and Jeudy are the 2 worst eligible receivers in terms of their catch metric. Other 2 are yards after the catch and getting open in the NFL, which is concerning. Not sure how reliable their method is, but did shed some light on at least some of the offensive struggles. I mean, we gave out that stat earlier that Jerry Jeudy was getting open against man coverage. So, but thank you for the response, Chicago Bronco. Back to his question, though. What would you think would be an acceptable season at this point, record-wise?
I mean, if you don't go to the playoffs, everybody's going to be disappointed. But if we're strictly resetting the expectations now, I mean, winning record the rest of the way, based on what we've seen, feels like a solid goal. So 5-4 the rest of the way gets you to 8-9. Big picture, no, that's not good. But if that were to happen, I think you'd feel a little bit better than you do right now.
Right. And you have some big games coming up too. So that means that the team is obviously improving if you're able to compete. Not just compete, but if you're able to win some of these games. Just like Chicago Bronco 86 said, if you get a win over a Chiefs, I mean, God, man, how many years are we going back now? 5, 4, 6 years without beating the Chiefs? I mean, that would just be huge in and of itself. You got a Baltimore team that you got to go to Baltimore and play. Tennessee in a week is going to be a tough one too. But then there's teams like Arizona on the schedule who you don't even know what you're getting week to week, and you could absolutely beat them. Same with the Rams. They're just not the team that they were last year. It's possible 9-8. I would say still a little bit surprised, I think, if they got to that mark, because you'd have to have some impressive wins at this point. But, I wouldn't be upset with 9-8.
No, definitely not. You look at, Titans, Raiders, Panthers, Cardinals, Rams. If you win 5 games, those are probably the 5.
Yeah.
And none of those seem unreasonable at all. Those are all games that can maybe not easily be won. The problem is there's just no reason to think the Broncos are actually better than any of those teams based on what we've seen.
Yep.
It's easy to look on paper and be like, yep, if you can win all those games, but it's just so hard to see them turning the corner and
Right.
having an offense that can do that. So yeah, I guess if you go 5-4, I feel like that's a good benchmark.
I mean, who knows how much this bye week is going to benefit them too. I mean, you get some guys back from injury. You give Hackett and the other coaches a time to kind of decompress, and maybe did they leave the facility after, or did they just go right back when they got back from London? Have they been grinding in there, sleeping in there still?
I hope they went
not.
home. I hope they went home. I think they said that they're going home.
That's
but
good.
Did they actually do it? Cool. I think 5-4 offensively, if you can, just put up 20 points a game the rest of the way, that's at least a big step in the right direction. They're at 16 right now. No, 15. I think they're at 15, 15.1.
Either of those aren't very good, and it's disappointing, to be frank. While you're looking that up, we could talk about the other half of this question from Chicago Bronco 86. Yeah. Taking a wide receiver with that first-round pick. Thoughts on that?
I don't know. I'm still against it, but the NFL's changed so much in the last couple of years and how they value receivers that maybe it's not such a bad idea. Obviously, Christian Kirk getting the massive deal is the best example, but you also look at like Devontae Adams and DeAndre Hopkins and all those guys getting like close to $30 or $30 million a year.
Right.
It's a different world, and you do have two receivers you've invested in. When I guess you can get off either of those deals probably after next year, and they might end pretty quickly.
Patrick?
Yeah, Cortland and Patrick, which I don't necessarily want to do. Cortland, he had such a good start, and these last 2 weeks he's really struggled. But if KJ doesn't take a step the rest of the season, which I think is probably a pretty safe bet, I could get behind drafting a receiver. Then you've got 4 right there. It does mean one of them's always on the sideline. It also gives you insurance for injuries. I could get behind it, especially if there's a Jackson Smith and Jigba right there.
Oh man,
exactly. He'd be the one where I could pull the trigger.
I mean, if he's there, you got to. I think there's some interesting names though. I mean, Jordan Addison as a guy, sort of undersized, but a guy that's really quick, can win at all 3 levels, and is just a beast out of the slot. Keyshawn Boutte, I think he's been hurt at LSU a little bit, but he's an absolute stud also. And then Quentin Johnson from TCU. If you want to get a wide receiver that gives you something you don't have, Quentin Johnson is the guy. Yeah. I mean, he gives you size. He gives you tremendous speed for that size. Gives you the ability to play above the rim and go get those jump balls too. That is something that, Cortland and Patrick can kind of give you something in the contested catch, but this guy is, it's a big comp, but it's DeAndre Hopkins-esque sometimes, the stuff that he does up in the air.
All right. We got some extra time here. I'm going to throw it back to something I talked with Eric about yesterday.
Okay.
I want to know what you think the brightest spots of the season are.
Brightest? Oh, man.
Yeah.
The development of players like Draymond Jones has been very encouraging.
Draymond's a good one.
Baron Browning, too, there were a lot of people kind of freaking out about his move, his position change over the offseason, and I think it's paid off in spades. PS2 is, if not already the best corner in the game, on his way to being that. Man, I think Javonte was going to be in for a huge year if he didn't get hurt, too. Dulcich has been a bright spot also. Definitely. It's nice to see him step in immediately. I think that's where I stop, though.
Wow. Yeah. You're probably right. And Singleton and he's been better than expected. Yeah. Get like 1-year contract though. I can't read too much into that. Cortland was.
He was. I'll shout out to Mari Mathis too. He's going to get a lot of flack for that 4 PI game. Something with that 4 PI game though, it's one of those things where you kind of get a target on your back, especially as a rookie, but also just as a defensive back. As someone, if you have 1 or 2 PI penalties, refs just look for that stuff. So I don't really put too much stock in the 4 penalties in 1 game thing. I feel like that's just kind of a freak instance.
At least he was there.
He was there. And the guy's got to learn on the job too. He's a rookie. So that's a bright spot. I don't know. Did I miss anything? What other bright spots do we have? Someone said Kwan Williams in the chat. That's a good one.
Yep. That was where I was going to go next. He's an interesting one because he's not a spectacular cover guy. Like, he's good, and he's made some really big plays, like on the 3rd down. There was what did he do in that last game? He had the pick in the last game.
He had the pick. He had a egregious tackle that was called for blocking below the waist, which was insane. But he's been playing well.
He had the tip on the ball that Baron Browning picked off the week before.
Okay.
So he's had some of those plays, but the big thing is just what he does as a blitzer. There's so many times he comes off the edge and just chases the quarterback out. He's forced more incompletions as a blitzer than as a cover guy.
Oh, I don't know if you love that. That's exciting,
but
though.
It is what it is. Like, he's still making plays. So, yeah, he's another one. And they've got him pretty cheap for at least one more year. So that's a good one. Yeah. I mean, Jonas Griffith has not been. Matt Henningsen has been.
He's been surprising, yes.
Mm-hmm. You like when you can hit on a 7th rounder like that.
Yeah.
Not necessarily because you want to start him and play him a bunch, and who knows, maybe he develops into that guy, but because you don't have to go blow like $3 million in free agency on just a veteran to plug things up back there.
Right. Corliss Waitman, he's been a bright spot.
He's been so close to being a bright spot. There've been some points, but like the bad hold on the McManus missed field goal,
just as a
couple
punter,
dud
though,
punts.
he's been playing well.
Yes, he has. I'm not sure what the numbers say, but I mean, not many touchbacks, a bunch inside the 20. Yeah.
I've been encouraged by Montrell Washington. I think you'd like to see more consistency, holding onto the ball, making better decisions in terms of letting the ball go over his head or fair catching it. But, I mean, they've got some guys to work with this rookie class, which I think is the main takeaway.
Definitely. Let's just wrap this up. Let's look through, let's give some rookie grades. We'll get out of here. First round pick, they did not have one. Second round pick, Nick Benito.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Oh, man. D+ at this point, C-, I think. I mean, you just haven't really. He's had. How many sacks does he have?
1.5, both in the last 2 games.
Okay, so I mean, he's kind of coming along. It's just. We knew coming into this season the guy was going to have to develop his body a bit more. He's going to have to be better against the run. He's just been kind of thrust into a position that I don't think many people, including him, expected he'd be in this year. So I guess I'll be generous. C- then.
I'll give him a D+. If you're going to be generous, somebody has to balance that out.
That's fair.
Yeah, you just want to see a little bit more. And a lot of it is because there isn't a lot of opportunity. With Baron Browning in front of him, Randy Gregory before he got hurt, Bradley Chubb up until now, it was tough to get on the field, but you did just want a little bit more pop. We haven't gotten that yet. Still, obviously, half a season to go.
Yep.
Dulcich, give me a B+.
Yeah, I was gonna say like an A-.
That's
Besides
fair.
the injuries, I mean, he's been fantastic, I think.
Yep. I think if you were to ask me, like before the season, if somebody were to say he's gonna miss the beginning of the season, he's gonna play 3 games and have these 3 games, I guess I would say like that's a good start.
Well, the thing is with rookie tight ends, they usually have a crazy adjustment period coming into the NFL. Look at Noah Fant. When he came in, he was expected to kind of do these things that Dulcich is doing now, and he never even did that.
No.
So I think that, I mean, really, not enough can be said about Greg Dulcich at this point. He's been awesome.
Totally. After that, Damari Mathis.
B-. I mean, he's made some plays in coverage. He's not getting just like completely torched over the top or anything. Really, the only negative you look at is that 4 PI game, which I already kind of talked about. So
It's a big negative.
it is.
But yeah, I mean, he seems to have gotten better. Gave up 29 receiving yards this week, 23 before that, 58 before that, with a bunch of targets too, because obviously playing opposite Pat Surtain.
Yep.
For a 4th round pick, I'll give him the B.
It's fair.
Yep, for a 4th round pick. If he's a 1st round pick, then it's not a B, but for what you expected, he gets the B. Ini Uwazurike, another 4th round pick.
I mean, I don't want to be mean here, but D.
Exactly.
I feel like I'm being generous.
Yep, exactly. There's just nothing really to work off of.
I mean, he was kind of an interesting prospect coming out of Iowa State just because of the way they play defense and his role, kind of 2-gapping and playing that nose tackle. If you can do that in college, it's another thing doing that in the NFL, though.
Totally. Exactly. 5th round, Delarian Turner-Yell. Haven't seen too much of him defensively.
Yeah.
There was one game where I thought we did. I can't remember which game that is, though. Special teams wise, fine. He showed up in the notes a couple times for special teams, but nothing crazy. And I think you give him a C, maybe a C minus.
That's fair.
I think C minus.
When you're a defensive back kind of drafted in those day 3 picks, you are just a special teams player, at least your first couple of years. So, I mean, just keep doing what he's doing. I think a C minus is pretty fair.
Yep. Montrell Washington, 5th round.
Well, obviously kind of outplayed his draft position already.
I think so, yep. Fumbles. One not his fault. Although Jiro Evero did say he needs to be louder so that PJ doesn't back into him.
Yes. I mean, I think it's just kind of a learning the nuances of the position. I mean, he was playing at Samford, and now you're in NFL stadiums. It's a lot
different.
louder. There's just a lot more going on. It means a lot more at that point, too. I'm going to give him... I don't want to be too harsh just because of where he was drafted, but I'm going to say B+. There's just plenty of things to work on, but his talent is obvious. Would love to see him more on the offensive side of the ball, too.
Definitely. He's fallen off a bit. He's 12th in punt return average. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of those guys in front of him haven't returned as many punts. So that's still solid. I'll give him the B+. The fumbles, see it 3 fumbles now this season? Maybe 4? I think it's 3.
I hope it's 3. If it's 4, that's almost 1 every 2 games. That's not a rate that you want with your punt returner.
Yep, it is 3. 3. Yep. So only lost 1. That's the big news. Notable one to lose.
Yes.
But
yes.
We'll give him the B+ with the caveat being that if it becomes an issue, he could drop off.
He's doing his job, and I think a little bit more than what we expected to this point. So,
yep, totally. 6th round. Oh no, another 5th rounder, Luke Wattenberg.
we haven't seen him, have we?
No, backup center. I mean, what you can say is he didn't beat out Graham Glasgow for the backup center job. Can't really expect him to. Grade him based on expectations, and I didn't expect to see him. Give him the C-.
Yeah, I don't even know if I can put a grade on this.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
C-, I think just seems like the right move.
Yep. Into the 6th round, we've got Matt Henningsen.
He has been surprising.
Yep.
To break that rotation as a rookie, too, or break into that rotation as a rookie, as a 6th round rookie is something that is really impressive. His defensive snap count has gone pretty high up since those first 3 weeks to open the season. He's averaging about 18 to 20 snaps a game now.
Yep.
He does have, why does it not have the totals here? This is 7 tackles on the season so far, 2 tackles for a loss, 1 quarterback hit.
Yeah. I mean, not a lot of big numbers, but I'll give him an A.
Yeah, I was going to say maybe like a B just because to come in as a 6th round rookie and break in on the defensive line is huge. So
yeah, totally. He's out there about a third of the game, quarter of the game. Quarter of the game is probably more fair. 7th round, Faion Hicks. Again, I'm just giving that same C-. Hasn't been on the field. Can't expect him to. And there we go. I feel like that was a good way to round out the podcast when a lot of people can't get through to the website to leave us comments.
Yeah.
Which is an issue that is being worked on and will be fixed shortly. Hopefully in time for Monday's podcast. That's when you hear from us again. RK will be back. I believe that Zach will be back as well, although he's got to be back. I think we're going to have the squad all back together on Monday, so be ready for that as we start to get ready for the Titans game next Sunday. And also make sure you're on the lookout for the tailgate show, which will be Sunday morning, even though the Broncos aren't playing. So there's a little look ahead. And if you guys wouldn't mind giving us that thumbs up on the way out, appreciate it. Thanks, Jake, for coming on.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Kale, for producing. We'll see you guys on Monday.